Welcome back, everybody. Hopefully you watched part 1. I think that might be a little bit useful here. So let's talk some more about how this astral doorway spirit communication device works, and then I'm going to do some more spirit communication of my own.
Hey guys, it's Steve. It's an exciting day. I completed the Astral Doorway Spirit Station, all-in-one complete spirit communication device that has taken me years to complete. I've been talking about the Astral Doorway for, 4 or 5 years now?
Can I point out how monumentally pathetic it is that it took you that long to figure out how to plug some effects pedals into an amp? Like, honestly, later on in this video, I accomplished the exact same thing just with the built-in Reaper plugins, and it took me all of about 20 minutes. If I actually had to buy pedals in an amp, it might take a little longer, because then I'd have to go to a music store or wait for delivery.
So here I'm just going to draw it out in basic simple terms on how this all works.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea, Huff, because based on everything I saw in part 1, none of this makes any sense. Maybe you can clear it all up for me.
Spirits manipulate audio to speak. That's been proven. That's been proven time and again. This Astral Doorway proves that.
Wait, so the Astral Doorway, which is a device that for it to work the way you want it to work, you have to go in with the assumption that spirits manipulate audio to speak, is the thing that proves that spirits can manipulate audio to speak. If you assume that's what's happening when you use the device proves that your assumption was right. Nothing circular about that.
That's the beauty of it.
I know that's the beauty of it. That means it's going to work for anyone who's gullible enough to assume from the start that it's going to work.
But first we need an operator to control the spirit box, in this case the Astral Doorway.
Another assumption you have to go in with, that the spirits can't or won't interact with these devices without a human operator. Why do you assume this is the case? Well, because you assume it. I mean, that's pretty much it.
The operator must have an open mind, the operator must believe, the operator must have good intent in order to connect with spirits, because that is the next step.
More assumptions, more assumptions. Let's build this pile of assumptions to the moon! Of course, it's very convenient that this only works for people who believe it works, right? That's exactly what I was saying before. When I listen to your audio, usually I can hear how you hear what you hear, but I can also regularly hear about 5 or 6 other phrases. I just pick the one I think is funniest. Like what you're actually saying when you say the person has to have an open mind and they have to believe and they have to have good intent, is that they have to go in with the basic assumption that whatever comes out of that amp is not just garbled up audio buried under layers and layers of effects that you put on it, but actually a spirit talking. And they have to believe it so much that they give a shit about the spirit's feelings. Don't worry, spirit, don't be afraid, I won't harm you. They gotta already be deep in it to feel like that, which is a defense mechanism against anyone who tries it and says it doesn't work, because then you can just say, oh no, you didn't go in with the right intent, you didn't believe strongly enough, whatever. Same shit they say about prayers and psychic powers and all the rest of it. It's not that our thing doesn't work whatsoever, something's just wrong with you. And they have to assume that that spirit is in the afterlife, and that spirit's going to be talking about love and God and going into the light. And if it's the relative or something, they have to assume it's going to be talking about how much it misses them and how great its life was, and something afterlife, and something I can hear you. Wow, I trust you. Wow. Hey, have you heard of this guy Steve Huff? We love him. He's awesome. Wow. And why do they have to assume this? Why do they have to be in this mindset? Because if they're not, they're either going to understand how the device works in the first place, and therefore that whatever comes out of it is meaningless from the start, or they're going to listen to the exact same audio you're listening to and hear something completely different that has nothing to do with what you're hearing, and in my case even directly contradicts you and makes fun of you a lot of the time. The too long didn't listen version being, if this is going to work, you got to accept all the assumptions and be gullible as hell.
The connection comes from within us. We have to connect with spirit through love, empathy, care, trust, respect.
Yeah, that's true. It'll work even better if you're emotionally invested. Pretty sure that applies to literally everything I've ever addressed on this channel.
So once we establish that connection, and we can feel when spirits come into us and attach to us and are ready to speak, we have to give spirits a voice, because spirits don't have a physical body. Spirits are energy.
Oh, there's another one. They're piling up quick now. I love getting this sort of point form whiteboard description of the basic premises of this entire thing. It really brings out just how absolutely ridiculous and laden with assumptions it truly is.
Our soul is energy, but that soul can come back and merge with the living, merge with our loved ones from the other side.
This is spectacular. It's happening in every single sentence. At some point here, I'm going to have to stop and enumerate all these assumptions. But as of now, I don't know where it's going to end.
And that is what helps them speak. So once You connect with spirit. We have to give them a voice.
Okay, well, they're connected with you, the living human host, right? They're inside of you. So why don't you just go like, ah, and they can just shape that sound however they wanna. They can modify sound, right? They can reach into a guitar amplifier and modify the sound there. Apparently that's no problem. But the sound that comes directly out of you or from the ambient environment or really just making the air move however they feel like, even if it's quiet, that's all too much for them. They have this astonishing ability to interact with the physical world in ways that we could only dream of, but only in this incredibly narrow and specific scenario, which conveniently involves a contraption made of guitar equipment and a radio, which requires you to completely screw up the input source beyond recognition, making it invariably sound spooky regardless of whether there's a spirit there or not, which works out exceedingly well for YouTube theatrics. How very convenient for you.
Let me pause this right here. We must give spirits a voice. It has been proven, and I've shown it scientifically years ago, that spirits change or manipulate audio to speak.
Oh, it's been proven? You've proved it scientifically years ago. Was your scientific proof better than what you're showing us now? Better than the audio that you show with a caption on it that I can change to say something completely different and it works just as well? Did you actually back up any of your assumptions that I'm still going to list at some point here? Or is this just a case of, no, really guys, believe me, I proved it. Let's move on.
We must give them a voice, whether we're using a recorder, a spirit box radio, an app, the app bank sounds, the scan of the radio. That is the voice that spirit will use to manipulate and change and give you answers.
But it's got to be technological. What, do you expect a spirit to just change the sound coming out of your mouth? Or your desk fan? Wait, that's technological too. Your butt? Don't be ridiculous. That's obviously impossible. It's been proven. So shut up.
But in order to do that, you have to connect with them. You have to give them that voice. And you also have to give them frequencies.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize you had to give them frequencies too. Wait a minute. I am giving them frequencies. My voice has all kinds of frequencies. High frequency, low frequency, and everywhere in between. Mission accomplished.
I have been experimenting with frequencies for the last 6 months. I have created over 100 of them that I tested with spirits, and 2 of those frequencies are working amazing with the astral doorway.
Remember what I said about how Huff is very open about most of his equipment, but he's always reluctant to say what that effects processor actually is? Well, here you go. Now he's calling it the frequency box. And see, just like with the dowsing rod video, there comes a point where I have to stop assuming well-intentioned stupidity and start questioning the intent. Because this is not a frequency box. That means nothing. It's not applying frequencies, whatever that's supposed to mean. That's not a good description of what an effects processor does. If you tell me you're applying frequencies to my voice, that's not going to make me think that you're applying reverb, pitch shifting, and reversal. What it'll make me think is maybe you're generating some sort of constant background frequency and putting that underneath my voice, like this. When you say frequencies, what you mean is effects processor presets, right? Your total custom configuration of your effects. I know that because you told me, look.
This says Huff because I have 2 frequencies I'm really working with, and one's Huff 1, one's Huff 2.
So why are you yanking my chain, Huff? Anyway, if the reason they can't modify your voice is because you didn't apply effects to it, why don't you just talk through a Darth Vader voice changer or something?
So we have the operator, the connection, the voice, the frequency.
The guitar effects.
And that leads us to the output, the astral doorway device itself.
The amplifier.
This is the final piece of the puzzle. This includes crystal energy, orgone energy, magnetic energy. I call it the magnetic heart inside. It has real 24 karat gold wiring, silver wiring, copper wiring.
It's an amplifier. It looks like a slightly different one. This is a slightly older video. It was a couple months before this amp got replaced with the ZT Lunchbox Jr., although it has a very similar look to it. It's just the grill on the front is different. And this one, the older one, also has LED visualizations. I'm sure that justified spending 5 years building it. Anyway, so everything you just said was gibberish. Crystal energy. Well, I'm sorry, but your machine's function is not affected by you hot gluing some crystals onto it, Steve. Orgone energy. If people don't know what that is, they should look that up. Doesn't really matter if you believe in it or not. It's not going to change the way your amplifier works either way. Magnetic energy. You said that one especially enthusiastically. What does that mean? Did you pry open the amp and stick a fridge magnet inside? What's that supposed to do? Make the spirit feel at home? And gold, silver, and copper wiring. What did you desolder a bunch of stuff inside the amp and replace the wires? How is that supposed to change anything? Is it conductive? Good, go for it. What do you think? Are the ghosts going to be attracted to your pimp style? If that's the case, put some spinners on it too. I mean, I see you have a whole bunch of copper wires stuck all over this one. And by the way, small detour here. There's one thing I want to address that I didn't address in part 1, and that's these copper wires everywhere, even on the current modern astral doorway. They were on the one he used to talk to James Randi, for example. The reason I didn't comment on that last time is that, well, for one thing, I wanted something else to talk about in this video, and I wanted to focus on just the actual devices last time. But also, I'm not actually convinced these do anything except make Steve Huff think his device looks fancy. I could be wrong, but I think they serve about as much actual function as the crystals Huff likes to glue to everything, which is to say, none at all. Like, when you look at it, it looks like he has the wires connected to the exposed metal of the patch cables where they plug in, but those cables aren't conductive at that point. They're conductive at the tip. I even gave this idea a test with my amp and effects processor with my video as input, and as I expected, it did absolutely nothing, because how could it? The wires are nowhere near the conducting tips.
And as you might imagine, what this actually does is... What I do know is, like I said before, there's a several second delay.
So I don't know what Huff thinks he's accomplished by putting those there. It doesn't appear to be much. Maybe it's just meant to be decoration. He never mentions it in how the device actually works. He never brings it up. Possibly the thought was that it would create some sort of feedback or reverb type effect. And I mean, I guess it's technically possible that there are some connections I'm not seeing that actually do accomplish something. After all, I don't have this device in front of me to really investigate it. So who knows? If it does do anything, though, that doesn't change the fact that the only actual real purpose of it is the exact same as all the effects pedals and all the rest. To mess up the audio and make it sound how Steve wants it to, so he can more easily pretend that he's talking to ghosts, instead of just an intentionally degraded radio broadcast. Audience, if you have a guess about what these copper wires are supposed to do, or even what they do, please do leave a comment so people can discuss it. Thank you.
It's able to use human energy, so the energy of the operator.
Oh, bet you still have to plug it in.
All of this comes together to create the astral doorway, or this device that allows spirits to speak.
Great. It's somehow not the stupidest thing I've seen even today. Yeah, I also don't know how that's possible.
But as I let audio in from here, you'll see a green light.
Oh.
That means spirits are given the audio, and then they have here and here to change it. So if they're connected with me and they want to speak, that's exactly how they speak.
Wait, so they can change the audio inside the effects processor? Inside your digital device. It's not audio inside the device, Huff. That thing is basically a computer. How in the hell do you think they're changing it in there? I mean, this is going way beyond the ability to just modify sound. Now we're talking about what? Directly changing the processing of a computer? And that kind of goes for the amp as well. I mean, I thought you meant that they change the sound as it comes out of the amp. But you're saying they change it inside the amp. Yeah, maybe the amp's not a computer, but it's not just an echo box for sound to bounce around in or something. It's an electrical device. Oh my god, this takes it to a whole new level of crazy. I don't even know what to say to that, man. That is absolutely bonkers. As if it wasn't before. But somehow it's worse now. I think I'm just gonna move on. Alright, now there's a lot more stuff still to get to, but before we move on to that, it's a good time to stop and go through the list of Huff's assumptions as I have it, which I can only assume is incomplete because it seems to me this entire idea is assumptions top to bottom. So, number 1, spirits exist. I mean, if you use one of these devices and you make the assumption that anything that you hear as words, for one thing, are actually words, and for another thing, are the words of a spirit, well, that's based on the assumption that spirits exist. If you don't go in with that assumption, you're actually going to be skeptical and think about how the device actually works, what it actually is, and then it's unlikely to be very convincing. Number 2, spirits or souls are energy, don't have a voice, don't have a body. I just lumped all these together. Number 3, spirits exist exist in the afterlife. Some of these are assumptions required to actually use the box, and some of them are assumptions that Steve Huff has stated. They're all kind of mixed in together. Number 4, spirits can hear you from the afterlife. That is, you can say something like, hey, are there any spirits who can hear me? I want to talk to James Randi. I want to talk to Michael Jackson. And they'll hear you asking that. How? Do they just hear everything in the world all the time? Well, who cares, I guess. Number 5. This is something Huff said directly. The soul can come back from the afterlife to the living world and merge with living people. Number 6. Being merged with a living person helps a spirit to speak through a bunch of guitar pedals and amplifiers that have absolutely no connection to the person. I don't know. Number 7. Spirits can interact physically with the living world despite being in the afterlife. Number 8. But they won't interact with the physical world without being connected to a living person. Or at least they won't interact with the physical world in the sense of modifying sound. Maybe they make all the leaves fall off the trees for all I know. Number 9. The spirits can't or won't connect to anyone who doesn't have an open mind, meaning so open their brain falls out, and believe in the spirits, and have good intent, and have respect and empathy and love and all that. Apparently even Charles Manson won't do it. Huff connected to him too. He didn't really seem like the kind of guy who'd care. Number 10. Despite being able to interact physically with the living world and everything this would entail about how our world works, the spirits don't actually do much at all. I mean, the main abilities they seem to have are the incredibly powerful ability to physically modify sound waves on the fly to turn them into whatever words they want, which is incredible. I don't quite understand why they restrain themselves to only speaking through radios connected to guitar pedals connected to amplifiers. Oh, and those little voice recorder tape deck things that sound like crap. Oh yeah, and the other thing they do is rotate dowsing rods when you move, which is not as impressive considering it seems like basic physics. 11. Even though they can modify sound to say whatever they want to say, they can't modify just any old ambient sound, or the voice of their living human host, or just move the air to make sounds. I mean, if they can go and modify the sound that comes out of an amplifier, I don't see any apparent reason why they shouldn't be able to, but apparently the assumption is they can only modify sounds that come out of an effects processor, or a shitty tape deck, or some other means of horribly degrading the input. Maybe they're all just, what's the opposite of an audio file? Number 12. Sticking crystals and magnets and wires made of various fancy metals all over your stupid amplifier inside and outside helps the spirits to speak through it because we assume it's true. 13. I think I already kind of said this one because I was talking off the cuff, but giving them a voice is not enough. You also have to give them frequencies, which means screwing up the clean human voice that they have such an easy time modifying with various random guitar effects, which apparently makes it easier? Number 14. Assuming you've done it all right and you have your device set up with your audio source and your noise gate, your frequency box, your amplifier, your random copper wires all over the place, your crystals stuck all over it that make it look like an elementary school craft project, the spirits are still very restricted in exactly where they can modify the sound. They can't do it at the source, they can't do it at the noise gate, they can't do it in the cables themselves, they can only do it in the amplifier or possibly in the fraction of a second between when the sound leaves the amplifier and when it hits your microphone, or in the digital effects processor. Which I really should put as a separate assumption. I mean, what the hell? If that's not a big one all on its own, I don't know what is. But I don't feel like it. All this crap goes under 14. That's just how it is. I noticed that clip about it late in production. I don't want to change everything. You know, it really makes me wonder what the point of the effects processor even is. I mean, the ghosts are just going to change all its internal operations and make it output whatever they want it to anyway. They're not modifying sound waves anymore. They're doing the most insane leet hacks anyone's ever heard of. If they're able to do that and that effects processor still does not output perfectly clear, crisp speech, that's because they don't want it to, not because they can't. Maybe they want to play down their abilities, make sure no security agencies get on their tail. But seriously though, why spend all that time experimenting with, you said 100 different configurations of effects, when it's all just going to be wiped out in an instant and not used every single time you talk to the spirits? Wait though, if the ghosts can do this, can they hack the stock market? Can they hack the banks? If so, those billionaires better watch out. Wall Street Bets got nothing on this. Be careful, Kent. I might just make myself an astral doorway and come after Lulu.com's certs with my Reptoid ghost hacker army. We failed last time, but there's no stopping us this time. What was I talking about? Oh yeah, number 15. But they can't do any of this with just any sound, only human speech sounds. For some reason, when they're directly tampering with the processing within the digital effects processor, it matters that what came in was human speech. I feel like they're way past skill level 99 here. They don't exactly need to worry about this. Number 16. Whatever comes out of that amplifier at the end, if you feel it's from a spirit, then it is from a spirit. Which, to be fair, is the basic kind of logic behind pretty much all of this crap. And finally, number 17, the fact that you're sitting there listening to vaguely voice-like audio made totally incoherent with a zillion effects, but still ultimately based on an input source of human speech, all the while fully primed to desperately look for words in it, and even specific words once you look at the captions Huff decides to put up on the screen. That was weirdly phrased. What I mean is, none of that can possibly have anything to do with the fact that your brain thinks it picked out words from the vaguely word-like sound soup. No, all I did was hook up my radio to a bunch of devices to make it sound weird in exactly the way I want it to sound weird, to make it as easy as possible for my brain to pick out words. Why does it sound vaguely like human speech but super weird now? Why am I able to pick out words? It's gotta be a ghost. Now, does Huff present any reason as to why we should accept any of these assumptions before we start listening to his recordings? Does he bother to give us any justification for any of his premises? No. What you're supposed to do is not think about that and just move on. That's the whole point. Okay, so listen, I underestimated what I was going to be doing here. I thought I was going to get to do some spirit communication in this video, part 2, but there's a whole bunch of setup for me to get to that, and I'm not going to get there. So I'll have to push that to part 3, which I never intended to do. I thought this was going to be the last part. In fact, at first I was struggling to finish part 1 until I started watching a whole bunch of Huff videos, and now I'm not 100% sure if part 3 is going to be the last part. What have I got myself into here? Well, it's a journey of discovery. How about that? So as always, thank you all very much for watching. Please give the video a like and click subscribe if you haven't. Giant, enormous, massive thanks to all of my supporters on every platform, and I really mean that, thank you. Hello to the email people, I see you're here early. Must be because you typed your email in at list.logicked.com. I find that really hard to say. Anyway, thanks everybody, see you next time.